It's awesome. We live in one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Every day I can come out here, you can get in the water, you can surf, you can do, whatever you want to do. Watch it, here we go. Yep. Look at that.
There it's going.
That's quality work right there, too.
That's, this is around your house right now.
Yeah.
Sean Gould has lived in Imperial Beach, California for a little over a year. He's already gotten used to the scene. That's because it's caused by something called a king tide. These extreme high tides are natural. They happen once or twice a year because of a specific alignment of the sun, the earth, and moon. But they're getting worse, forcing residents to confront, or in some cases completely ignore, a problem that will soon be widespread.
But given what's going on right now, do you still think it makes sense to live here?
Yes, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, this is a dream, let's be honest. Long term, is there going to have to be some decisions made, and some of them may be being tough? Possibly. Watch your shoes, you're about to get drenched.
Unlike a lot of Southern California coastal towns, Imperial Beach is a working class community. Their entire city budget this year is $19 million. That pales in comparison with the whopping $100 million that the projected 6 feet of sea level rise is expected to cost the city by 2100.
We're just cleaning up the sand and the cobblestones that are in the street.
Are you going to have to do this again tomorrow?
We expect to do this for the next 4 days in a row.
So what are the city's plans in terms of trying to deal with sea level rise and more frequent events like this?
So the city's assessing its public infrastructure in terms of sea level rise and what needs to move.
So you're actually thinking of moving?
Exactly. I mean, what you look behind you right here is less than 100 feet away from you is a sewer pump station that's within a flood zone. And that is a concern for us.
Has it been difficult to sort of come up with a plan for the city?
It's controversial, yeah.
Why is it controversial?
Everyone has varying opinions on it, and unfortunately, politics is coming into play here.
That's because the state of California isn't waiting around for the sea to rise. It's being proactive and forcing every city along the coast to come up with a plan. Now. So, officials in Imperial Beach commissioned a study that would offer solutions. One of those solutions introduced a term that's since become controversial: managed retreat. For city officials, this would mean eventually removing public infrastructure like seawalls and sewer pumps and seizing any private property that got too damaged to live in. But to a lot of residents, managed retreat meant the government was going to force people out of their homes, which has caused some tension, especially with local politicians like Paloma Aguirre, who was ambushed by a local resident right before we interviewed her.
Paloma, what is your intentions long-term here for 10 years? I'm a resident of Imperial Beach. You represent us.
You're going with me.
No, I'm just asking you a question. I represent Imperial Beach too.
Had several public workshops of which
And are you going to retreat? Are you going to do managed
Whatever
retreat? Are you going to remove the language of managed retreat
Okay,
from...
you asked me a question, I'm trying to answer it. You're talking over me.
Okay, go ahead.
You've had several public...
That interaction was honestly a little bit heated. Can you tell me what happened?
You know, it's something that we've seen happen here. It's happening in other towns and in coastal towns in California where there's just misinformation when it comes to using the terms managed retreat or other types of terms that have to do with adaptation to sea level rise. It's a very interesting situation that's happening socially, psychologically. When we're facing life-changing events, I think that that taps into the deepest fears of us as human beings, and everybody reacts differently.
The next day, we caught up with the resident who confronted Councilwoman Aguirre, Dante Pamintuan.
What exactly is your issue with the term managed retreat?
Managed retreat in our local plan talks about the eminent domain as a last resort. We don't surrender. We never surrender. You know, I was in the Marine Corps.
Now, I've spoken to some scientists, and they've told me that it's going to get worse because of sea level rise. How do you feel about that?
This is nature. This is God's creation. Look at, if you want to turn the camera here, in the years past, this has always been a flooded area. And look, It's not even wet. I mean, it'll drain and everything's fine.
So you can engineer yourself out of this issue.
Absolutely, this is an engineering solution. It's not a scientific solution.
A few days after our interview with Dante, the city released an updated version of its plan, which basically retreated from managed retreat, stating that it does not consider it a viable or necessary adaptation strategy. Instead, the city will stick to its current strategy of adding sand to the beach and keeping up existing shoreline protections. Terminology aside, sea level rise in Imperial Beach is a reality. So much so that scientists from the Scripps Institute of Oceanography have taken an interest. They're using LiDAR, drones, and ocean sensors to study the effect of these extreme events on Imperial Beach, with the ultimate aim of creating a model that predicts how other coastlines might change in the future. That's something that Gabe Burr of the California Coastal Commission is very interested in.
How well are communities all along the coast in California doing it in terms of coming up with the climate adaptation plan?
So it's a work in progress, and I think it's proven to be more difficult than we maybe originally assessed or thought that it would be.
Why would
just
that be?
because there's so many different stakeholders and people involved. It's not as simple as just saying, okay, go ahead and map this, your vulnerabilities, and then come in and pick a solution that's going to work for everybody. You're dealing with a massive ocean and sea level rise and changing conditions, and the solutions aren't going to be just really easy solutions. What we're projecting aren't changes are going to happen overnight, right? And so this idea of, well, things are still the same. I don't need to change.
Right, I don't need to do anything right away.
Right, I don't see it. You're talking about the ocean rising. Well, I don't see it.
Does that worry you?
Yeah, it's a problem. And I think that's what we're trying to do, is kind of work with these local communities, because if we don't do something, we're going to end up being reactive, right? And so then you're forced into limited solutions, and some of those may not really be what's best for the coastline.
People don't like it when you mess with their homes, and Imperial Beach is no different. But residents know what's coming.
We can only ostrich in the sand for so long. There's going to have to be changes, and it's going to get worse.
So this is definitely on your mind.
It's a reality. The city stopped, taking the sand out. These buildings would get knocked down. The ocean's going to win.